Awesome. Well, thank you for inviting me to be on the call. I love talking about this particular topic that we're going to delve in today. My name is Angela Tauscher. I'm a real estate agent. I'm a broker in Mesa, Arizona. So I handle most of the Phoenix metro area. It's pretty much the whole valley. And we got an opportunity a few years ago to get connected and niche down in the channel account that I'm just going to say for me is attorneys. And I get a lot of people that are like, ew, yuck, attorneys, that sounds so difficult, and those files must be awful and challenging. And I have to tell you that if you have not opened your mind up to this particular niche, that you could be missing a very large portion of income for one of your networking columns that you're working on. Um, so what happened was a couple years ago, I own my own brokerage. We could see what was coming, after the hype of COVID and having some of our best years ever, that it all of a sudden here in Phoenix, it was just like coming down fast and hard. And I thought, okay, what can we do? I had heard about a program that was called a CDRE, a Certified Divorce Real Estate Expert, and it was a lot of money, and it took almost a year at that time to get through that program. But I thought, well, people, despite what's going on in the world, and maybe even more so because of financial things going on in the world, divorces happen. So I completed that program. It was amazing. It taught me how to work with attorneys, their lingo, what's important to them, what's their values. And basically, what I did was I took that information and I ran with it for about a year and a half. And then I realized divorces suck. So they are really hard on everybody involved. And it doesn't matter how wonderful or helpful or neutral you remain throughout the process. At the end of the day, pretty much a lot of times they don't like anybody involved in this whole process because it just has such a negative connotation for a lot of people, not everybody. So I thought about it, and I'd accidentally gotten a probate file or two during this process, and we had taken what we were doing on the divorce files, and we really simply just applied it to the probate file. And what happened was just sheer magic. The people that we were working with were so thankful, so grateful, so excited to have someone that could come in and really do a full service process that helped them through a very difficult time in their life, but at the same time, they knew was being compliant with what the attorneys needed and what they needed with the courts, that the light bulbs just went off. And I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. I can pivot away from this divorce stuff that's really, really hard and move into an arena where we know that people have equity in the homes more often than not. They have to sell the home because it's usually mandated as part of the process. And then third, a lot of the beneficiaries, almost for us anyway, here in Arizona, the bulk of them are out of state. So they are so grateful to have someone that they can trust, that they know that was a direct referral from their attorney, who is a very trusted resource for them to us to take care of the transaction. So I'm going to talk about them and delve into that a little bit. And Rebecca, if you get any questions in the chat, will you just stop me and we'll cover those or decide if
Totally.
it's something?
I
Okay,
got you.
perfect. So this is not cold calling. This is not cold lead generation. This is really a trust transfer. Um, as I mentioned, the attorney referrals, they come from families that have already really anchored a lot of trust in that attorney. In many instances, sometimes I literally last night, I couldn't believe it. I ring ring, the phone calls, and it's a couple, and they said, my sister, he says, my sister just passed. Our attorney's office told us that you'll be able to assist us through figuring this out with the house. It's not a probate situation. The sister had put together a trust, and so everything's ready to roll. They just know they need to sell a house. They're not local, and their attorneys sent them over to us. I happened to be like 15 minutes from where they were. So this happens a lot. They'll fly in. They're trying to do their best to sort through whatever they can find paperwork wise or whatever is important to them in the house. the funerals today, and then they have to leave Friday afternoon. So that's about the amount of time in-person interaction we often get on these files. So I was very fortunate. The house was like 10 minutes from my house, and it was in a position where I had an hour window before my next appointment, which was going to dinner with an attorney who I hang out with now and have become great friends with. And so I buzzed over there. I was able to walk through. I had my meta glasses on. I took pictures of everything with my meta glasses. I had my plod, so I was able to record our entire conversation for notes for later because this is kind of on the fly. The sister had owned the home for 30 years. It's free and clear. She'd just put on a new roof, new AC, updated the entire kitchen, and it's about a $600,000 price point, which for us is a really nice price point in a great area that will sell quickly. So slam dunk. And all I told them is I said, listen, I have my baselines here. I'm going to go back. I'll do a write-up for you, and I'll tell you guys in a little bit what my write-up looks like. That way, if they want to consult with the attorney still, some people, I don't know if anybody's ever had this, like you get a referral from like a family member of their best friend or something, but they still check your reviews on Google. Once in a while that happens, we do our write up, we get it over to the individual, but they feel like they're almost obligated, or like they still have to have that run by the attorney just to check on what we gave them. Not very often, but that is exactly what happened. These families are often they're in crisis or grief. They're out of state, as I mentioned. They're overwhelmed. These folks were so overwhelmed. His sisters lived in this house for 30 years, and it is packed to the gills with stuff. And they don't know what to do with it because guess what? They don't want the stuff. We talk about that all the time with aging parents, and they just think, oh, my kids will, take it all. The kids don't want any of it. They really don't. We do at least two of these a month, every single month, and we have for a couple of years now. It's a very, very steady flow of business for us once we get them. So they're super grateful for someone's competent in taking control, and that's really what we do. Um, I'm very fortunate. My husband, who happens to work with us full time, he was a full time claim rep for 20 years, and so when you'd have a fire or a flood or whatnot, the claim reps come in and they write the estimate, the exactimate, to give to the vendor to fix the house or put it back together. So normally, if I hadn't been under crunch time, I will tell you on every single one of these, my husband goes with me. So we always encourage a second party. It doesn't have to be your spouse, but just a second party to help be eyes and ears because there's a lot going on and there's things in the house that we have to talk about before they leave town, like is there medications? Is there weapons? What's the security look like? Who else has access to the house? And that's protecting us as well, because if they hand over the keys to us, but we're not scheduled to be in there for 2 or 3 days, and we get there and the house has been emptied by someone else who had access, we need to make sure we've addressed some of those concerns so that doesn't happen. So you're not selling house necessarily as you are selling a house. You're not just selling a house, is what I meant by this. You're solving a problem during one of the worst moments of their life for many of them. Once in a blue moon, there is some conflict, maybe like with siblings or whatnot, but really we don't run into very many of those situations. And last year, I can't remember, Rebecca, on that advertisement, do you remember how many referrals I said I got last year for this?
It was a lot. I remember that.
Yeah, I think it was almost 20. And one, you guys, I had one family that chose to go with a different agent. I don't go up against anybody else on almost any of these. And the reason they went with a different agent is like the niece had worked for a brokerage and was still highly connected. They felt obligated to still interview us because, the attorney said, listen, this is the way to go. But I completely get it. But to be able to just say, I had almost 20 referrals come in and I got every single one of them except for one is pretty amazing. Um, so some of the key benefits, as I mentioned, the clients, they welcome some guidance. They're not resistant almost ever. part of my report when I go in, so we tell them, we say, hey, listen, here's what we're going to do. We find a time that works for them to go view the house. So we do our walkthrough. We take note of any concerns, problems. As I mentioned, how are we going to address those? How are we going to get keys and access? And the assumption from the second we walk in the door is it's happening. And they don't doubt it either. So they're already trying to formulate a plan with us the second we get there. Um, then I come back to the office. I tell them I'll get it to them usually the next day. I use a program called High Note, which I love. It's like, I don't know, $10 a month or something. And in this High Note, it's basically a template. And in it, I just do a little recap of basics of our conversation. Then there's a section where I can put a CMA for them. And the next section, I put in the net sheet based off the information they gave me. So they can click into that, see the net sheet. And then the third section is just homework. And the homework is things that they maybe need to do that we can't do, like they're removing weapons or whatever. They've chosen to have the house rekeyed because they're worried somebody that shouldn't have a key still has a key and they've already got that in motion, if that makes sense. And then the rest of the homework is usually what we're doing for them. Now, in many cases with these houses, it might be, maybe they did a health and welfare check, so they broke out a window. So we're coordinating to get the window replaced, or we're coordinating. There's a lot of situations where there's car transports and somebody has to be at the house when that car transport comes to sign off and they're out of state. They feel helpless. They don't know what to do. It's, mind-boggling for them to try to find the car transport people and get that all coordinated. So we tell them, we'll be there. We'll make it happen. We are now an extension of their family in assisting them through this process. Um, so the collaboration is expected. It's not questioned that we are going to be a party of all components of this home. Um, so we have the shared goal that the home will be sold cleanly, it will be sold correctly. Most of the homes are vacant, most of them have equity, and we do not price them emotionally. We almost never, ever, ever, and realtors out there, you know what it's been like this last couple years where they think they want to do COVID pricing. And then, 9 months later, they're going, well, that didn't work. So we're able to go in and price the houses, not underprice them, but price them where they need to be with a really nice clean slate. Um, the bonus, of course, because all these are vacant, is for like our newer agents or other people on the team. They can hold them open as much as they like, whenever they want. And so this is a long-term professional relationship to get these. So I'm going to talk how do we get the attorneys on their radar? Where do you even start? Because I know for a lot of people, they um, see attorneys, they hear attorneys, they're like, "Ugh, like I don't want to go there. Like they just seem sometimes unattainable. And how do I build that relationship? So I would suggest the very first thing is to ask your sphere. If there is somebody in your sphere that is, related to an attorney, works closely with them, and I don't care what kind of attorney they are, whether they're in bankruptcy, divorce, real estate attorney, estate planning versus probate, two different things. Estate planning attorneys are the ones that help people prepare basically for the what ifs, and their clients have their stuff together because they've written out clear direction of what should happen. Probate attorneys they weren't prepared. Now it has to go through the probate process, and that attorney it's a lot more work and a lot more involved, and it's costly. And what you'll find is often the estate attorneys don't want to do the probate work. So there's usually less probate folks out there, but they get a lot of business. And if you are connected with those probate attorneys, man, that is golden. So then, of course, your next level would be and I'm just talking easy, low hanging fruit stuff for how to find some attorneys to start with. Ask your CPA, ask your financial advisors, like I said, any other attorneys, because it's really interesting in the world of attorneys. You know how realtor to realtor we can give each other referrals and we get paid? Attorneys are the same way. So attorneys love having their own network of other attorneys. And it's kind of like the public just hears that somebody's an attorney and they call them for everything. They call the same guy for their bankruptcy, for their divorce, for their, real estate contract that they have a question about. And usually those attorneys only do one or two specialties. They typically don't do all of those things. So, but they get flooded with the calls of stuff they don't do. So they keep this cadre of other attorneys they stay closely connected with so that they can give them those referrals and get paid off of them. And then conversely, those other attorneys that don't do what they do, they get fed them back and forth. So it's a very strong referral resource, attorney to attorney back and forth. So that's why I said I don't care what kind of attorney it is. That way, if you can get a one-to-one with them and you get that opportunity to say, hey, if you had to send somebody for estate planning or you had a situation where somebody passed and they didn't have anything in place and it really needs to go through probate, who would you send that to? Do you think I could get a warm introduction and you see where you can springboard with that? The other thing we do, so borrowed trust, clearly it's like that triangle of trust that we always talk about. We in our office also do what we call a milk run. A milk run means that we are doing monthly pop buys to a strategic set of attorneys. These are ones that we're either trying to cultivate on our list or they're already on our list, or maybe we did one thing with them by accident and now we're trying to further that relationship and get the second one. Um, we usually do 3 to 4 months of pop buys before we do an ask. And our pop buys are something as simple as like this month we're doing the little kettle corn popcorn things. Um I just got the what you call it for it, the proof, and it just says get the skinny on our real estate services. I've got to fix that because last year we did skinny popcorn, so we're changing that. And then on the other side of it, it just has a quick synopsis of things that we offer for the attorneys: property cleanouts, coordinate any remodel work, hazmat cleanup. We haven't had to do a hazmat, thank goodness. Rekey doors, obtain lien information, securing a vacant property, full service essentially things that their clients are overwhelmed and they don't know where to start and they don't know what to do. So with our milk runs, when somebody makes our milk run, we have it kind of planned out for 4 weeks of the month. So the first week, our goal is to do some recon. So I'm former military, and I love knowing my plan and what's the strategy. So what I mean by recon is we stock them online. I also throw them into Chat GPT, and I want to know what's their likes, their interests, their hobbies, their dislikes, their charitable contribute. Where's their bent to spend their life uh, activities. And so it's not because I'm going to go try and bump into them at the gym if they mention they go to a certain gym. It's just I'm looking for an area where like attracts like. And if there's something common or similar, or, maybe I don't know, they play volleyball and it turns out, my daughter plays volleyball and small world. And sometimes you just never know where that conversation will turn into an opportunity to just start by chatting and then taking it further if you have some knowledge of that information. So we stock them a little bit. The second week of the month, we usually do our pop by. And so the pop by again is just something nominal. We've done we have a whole system of it, but we'll do like a food item, then we'll do like a hand sanitizer thing, and they all have some little kitschy phrase to go with them. And then the backside always has, it's a postcard we give with the Popeye item, always has, here's the things that we can do for you. The end of the year, December of every single year, we give them a desk calendar with our information on it right there. They love them. They ask, they'll say, hey, when you bring the desk calendars this year, can you guys bring five? Because, a couple of the paralegals want them as well. Well, hello. Now our information that says specializing in probate and estate sales, divorce transitions, residential resale, new builds and buys, and representation is right there with our phone number, huge on their desk. So those are really popular. So we do them every single December. The other thing that we do in January with our pop buys, and I'll talk about why, is we do their goal cards. And these are nice, really thick, and it just says goals or dreams with deadlines. Has our rover logo, and it just says this year I'm going for, and they can put in a financial goal. They can put in, maybe amount of cases they want to work or work on the health. It doesn't matter. It's private for them, but it's something we try to give them stuff that for like 9 to 10 months of the year is tangible to hold on to, they keep. It's not just going to get tossed. Um, but we have to respect the decision makers in the office. So you're never going to get right to the attorney usually, unless you have some sort of warm connection. I got to back up. So we like to hit new people on our milk run for like 3 to 4 months because we're not trying, we're working on getting to know their admins and their paralegal. Their admins and their paralegal run the office. They are the neck that turns the head. And the more that they get to know you and feel comfortable with you, the more likely you potentially are going to get eventually that appointment with the attorney. So we don't rush right in to try and, can I talk to the attorney, the attorney, the attorney? We don't ask till at least month 4 unless we had a direct referral connection from somebody in our sphere. Um, the goal is the office. We're trying to get the office to know, like, and trust us and feel comfortable with us. We treat the office staff like partners, not gatekeepers. We learn their names, we remember their preferences, we show appreciation consistently. And they know this because you can tell because we've done some homework. And, maybe when my gal pops by, she'll mention, oh my gosh, I saw that you guys just did, your fundraiser or whatever it was. And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, it was so fun. We did. And then they get off to talking. Speaking of which, these pop-bys, I don't do them. And I know that might shock a few people, but I am a high functioning introvert. I'm a D. I'm not a chatty person. I don't love chit chatting just for whatever reason. But I have a gal, one of my buyer's agents, that she is just a social butterfly. You can spend 3 minutes with her and she will know your favorite color, what car you drive, and your first dog's name. I mean, she just is amazing at this, and this is her place where she shines. So she does all of the pop buys, and it has not held us back in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, so then the third week, what she does is people that it looks like it's appropriate for, she will email them or call them to see if we can get on their schedule, if it's a newer attorney for us or somebody we just want to catch up again with. At that point, when we get the attorney invite, I go with her. We both go because she's the face everybody is known. The attorney doesn't know her, but she's the face the office knows. So she can do that, catch up with them and chit chat. And then when we sit down with the attorney, we're new to each other, and he or she doesn't realize they don't have that same office camaraderie with her. So it doesn't matter. Um, and then, so that's what we try and do the fourth week is we're either, catching up with our existing attorneys by, going and grabbing lunch or going to dinner, or sometimes we just go out and do fun stuff because these attorneys, and many times they will become your friends. I'll talk about that in just a minute, but the attorneys, they appreciate high producing earners in a different way than maybe some of our other B2B business contacts do. So I'll cover that in a minute. Um, so when we go in, we've done our homework, we've looked at their website, we know their practice areas, we know what their online presence looks like. We understand, what kind of cases they actually want. Because remember, often we are having one-to-ones with attorneys not in estate or probate for two reasons. One, I want to see who they would refer to so I can get in connection with those people. But number two, a lot of times those attorneys get something really simple or easy that they're not going to send on. They just say, listen, you just got to sell the house and call this realtor. So we get referrals all year long from attorneys that are not estate or probate, that it's just they feel like it's simple enough. They just tell their client to just call us. And so that's great too. So most importantly, when we get the opportunity to actually sit with an attorney, this is what's a really big deal. This is where people, I think realtors shoot themselves in the foot because, as realtors, sometimes we have a little bit of ego. We're competitive. We love that we're the top of the top. But attorneys don't care. So when we get the opportunity to sit down with an attorney, we need to walk in informed and not impressed. The agent that walks in and says, I did, ooh, I sold 72 houses last year for $30 million. Dollars. I would never, ever, ever share that with an attorney in my first get together with them. Now, your attorneys that have become friends with you and that you're hanging out with and you're doing life with that now, they love it. They love your success. You love, you're encouraging and love their successes, of course, as well. But that is a way, way, way different stage of the relationship. And so on your first getting to know them, they don't care that you're in the Diamond Club. They don't care how many deals you did. They are, it's really interesting. It kind of really caught me off guard. Attorneys have a lot of disdain for real estate agents. They think we're dirty and sleazy. I'm going to say that again. They think we are sleazy, which I know sounds like an oxymoron because in so many instances, um, we've heard, the old saying about attorneys, but it's really true. And it's interesting that they think that. And I think it's just because they've had so many bad experiences in the past because often their clients, if an attorney's not referring them, their clients just pick up whoever. Cousin Joey, who got his license yesterday, has no idea what he's doing and botches the entire issue, and it can cost the client a lot more money because when the attorney has to step in and fix things or it goes longer, every single interaction with that attorney is usually costing the client money or it's costing the estate money. So that's another part we'll get to. Rebecca, before I move on, does anybody have anything yet?
Yes. Where do
Okay.
you get your materials, like the desk calendars?
Oh, my title gal, she does all the research for me and then says, here's the pricing. And I think it's just a local printer. I do know they are a little pricey. The desk calendars are like 11 or $12 a piece,
Mhm.
but it is an expense that I will do all day long every single year. Most of our pop buys, we usually keep those somewhere between $3 to $5 per and we do about 30 a month. So we don't have this crazy huge budget. Most of our attorney financial commitment is with our time. Any other questions before I move on?
That's all I have in the chat.
Okay, perfect. So, so basically, when you're sitting down with the attorney for the first time, some light humor, um, getting to know them. It's not a impress them. This is not an impress them situation at all. Knowing that you maybe have 15 to 30 minutes. So we do not lead with production. We don't lead by pitching our team. We do not try to control the conversation. We don't talk like we're at a listing appointment. Here's what we do when you sit with an attorney for the first time. You want to get to know them briefly. Why this area of expertise did they pick it? Just a little bit more about them. Or sorry, what areas do they cover? What specialty? How long have they practiced? Giving them an opportunity to chat because we all know when you sit down and do a one-to-one with someone, and the more the other person gets to talk at the end of it, they say, "This was the best one-to-one." And you didn't say anything, but people love to hear themselves talk. The second really important part is to ask about pain points. What's been your experience working with realtors? What tends to go wrong? Then stop talking. Take notes. Do not defend the industry. Don't have them say, oh, well, the lack of communication. And then you jump in, well, our team, our communication, da, 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 da. No, do not do that. When they say, yeah, the lack of communication, yeah. Okay, what else? What else? Let them get it all out. Don't explain away bad experiences. Then, when you get your opportunity, and only then, You're going to, with their permission, you share 3 bullet points about what you have to offer. And it's probably not going to be what you guys think it would be, but only 3, not 4, nothing else, unless they specifically ask you additional questions. If they do not ask you additional questions, you're not going there, no matter how tempted you are. Remember, the goal is to stay connected with them month after month anyway. So hopefully you'll get an opportunity to, a lot of times the first appointments, maybe you go to their office. Then maybe if you get a second opportunity to sit with them and offer to take them to lunch, that might be a few months away, right? And then as you get to know each other, it can progress. So here's the 3 things that I lead with. Now, for you, it might be something a little bit different. Um, for attorneys, ethics, protection, and clarity are key. Ethics, protection, and clarity. So the first thing that we share, and our office does this, is that vendor coordination with payment at closing when allowed. Remember, for a lot of these folks, there's a ton of equity wrapped up in the home. So, for example, the one from last night, there is going to be well over $500,000 in equity in this home, free and clear as soon as we close it. But for a lot of them, sometimes it takes a little bit longer if it's a probate process to get into the bank accounts or whatnot. And maybe the house does need a junk removal service that's going to cost a couple $100. Maybe there is a slow leak under the kitchen sink that really has to be addressed before we put it on the market. I'm not talking about remodeling homes. I'm simply talking about getting them market ready. So I have a whole different thing I could teach on my B2B business because it's off the hook. It's my second channel that's crazy good. But vendor coordination. So we really work with a lot of vendors that are willing to do the work and be paid out of closing. And they trust us for this, which is a big ask and a big trust. But with most of these files, we are tasked to get them on the market right away, and we are allowed to price them well, and they tend to go quickly, especially when we get them market ready. So again, some of those vendors might be clean outs, minor repairs, just some estate prep, um, connecting them with if they need to do an estate sale. We don't do the estate sale. If they're like, listen, no, it's all junk, it just needs to be donated, whatever that looks like. We have several local organizations. One's called Sunshine Acres, and another one is Salvation Army, that they'll actually come to the house, and my husband coordinates all that so the client doesn't have to, coordinates being at the house to assist in getting everything out of the house, anything left over. Then he coordinates the junk removal, but it removes the burden from the family and it keeps that case moving forward. So, number one is vendor coordination. Now, if we have a vendor that will not agree to be paid out of closing, but we absolutely have to have that vendor, like an electrician. We had one house where there was some wire sparking on an outlet. We will pay that from Rover, from our brokerage, um, ahead of time with the agreement. It's in writing that we get paid out of the closing. We don't mark it up and we don't make money on it. And we certainly don't send our meth head cousin who just got out of jail to help him out. So we keep a slush fund, and obviously we've been doing this for a long time. And like I said, we do at least 2 of these every single month. We keep a slush fund of about $10,000 so that as money's coming in, money's going out, and we won't lend on the next one until we know that, we're still staying within those boundaries. I will tell you though, the average that goes out on probably most of these is up to maybe 1,500, 2,000. A lot of times it's just some very minor stuff, maybe a carpet cleaning, that kind of thing. The second thing for attorneys is equity protection. Um, so the very first thing we do when we get a file, regardless of what anybody's told us, what the personal representative believes or the attorney believes, is we immediately call title and we have liens run. And we are just checking because sometimes they don't know. Mom and dad, they don't share everything with their adult children. They're embarrassed or they're confused or they got scammed and they don't even know there's these liens on the house. And so that's a really big deal. We had one a few years ago, and it was one of our divorce ones. They had been duking it out for 5 years, and each one of them had an attorney. 5 years of nitpicking, very, very, very costly because every time you're involving the attorney on both sides. And they pulled us in on year 5 because they finally got to the point where they needed to sell the house. Well, the house is like 850,000. Both the parties told their attorneys that there was only about 200 owed on the house or something like that. And I immediately pulled liens, and guess what? There was an SBA loan for like it was like $500,000 on the house. So at the end of the day, they were going to clear like $40,000 total. That was before you take out my fees. So there was nothing, there was no money. And the attorneys predominantly often get paid from the money coming from the sale of the house. So the attorneys were like beside themselves. They couldn't believe it. They literally both took losses. That file settled like that. There any other things that were happening, the attorneys like, we don't care. We're not getting paid anything. We're done. And so that was a nightmare for them to find out after the fact. Had they been working with me from day one, we pull the liens for the attorneys and for the clients to say, hey, I don't know if you know, I just had one last month that there was he had done some weird IOU that somehow legitimately got filed for like $15,000 that nobody knew about, but we couldn't close the house until it was resolved. And so we knew about it from day one when I took over the file. So I let them know that we will help assist with any costs up front and that we will pull liens for them, and it's not going to cost them anything to do that so that they know their paychecks protected. And then the third thing and the last thing that I tell them is we will not double side their files ever. And this is where they go, what? Because here in Arizona, it is really, really common that agents will do both sides of the transaction. Attorneys are deeply, deeply ethics driven. And so they think we are scum of the earth when we do both sides of that transaction. It immediately triggers distrust for them, and that alone will differentiate you amongst other agents, and they will potentially give you a shot. So that's a really big deal. Okay. So those are the three things, and then we thank them for their time. We're very, very cognizant. We're trying to keep it under the 30 minutes and ask them if we can please keep in touch. If they already have, we do ask them before we finish, we say, do you have a go-to person now for your real estate needs? And sometimes they'll say yeah, and we just say, we'd love to be your backup if that person's ever unavailable for whatever reason. We're happy to help. So that's how we start out that initial appointment with them. A couple other things. Rebecca, do I have like a little bit longer?
Yeah, we have it slotted until 1, so 2 p.m. your time.
Okay, perfect. So the other part is speaking their language. Attorneys don't speak in transactions. You say a transaction to them, and they think it's cold, it doesn't make sense. They have clients or cases. They say cases a lot. So anytime you're going to chat with an attorney, just change your vernacular for what you might say as a transaction to a case. Here in Arizona, we have personal representatives of the estate of. So we call it PR for short. So getting to know some of the ins and outs of just, you don't have to know it all, but just really basic language for your state would be a good idea. So knowing are they called my dad passed in Washington 2 years ago, and in Washington, I was the administratrix, which is like a whole lot of letters to spell. But that's the thing there. They have different language for what you're called if you're that person. And it was a probate situation because my dad had nothing in place. So knowing what that person's called, knowing, the attorneys also, they are either Mr. Smith or Attorney Smith. I know it sounds weird, but unless they invite me to do so, I don't typically start off with saying, hey, Joe, Mr. Smith, thank you for inviting us or allowing us to come over. Or in communication, Attorney Smith, da 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 da. I know it sounds weird, but it's a little different. The other thing is attorneys, if you are going to give them some printed material, so we'll often go with a folder the first time we put a CV in it. So a curriculum vitae. Attorneys they don't use resumes, they use CVs. It's pretty easy to put one together anymore, especially if you're using ChatGPT. So learning some of those little minor parts, you can a lot of times if you have title, you can ask title, hey, how do you guys see this written? What does that look like? Maybe you can find a podcast for your state that talks about some probate language. There's also, even knowing things like restricted versus unrestricted. So I mentioned we don't have a problem selling our houses. Most of the probate files we get are what we call unrestricted, meaning the court has already deemed this particular person as the personal representative. They've been given and granted all approval to do whatever. There's going to be an accounting at the end, so they have to follow the rules, but we don't have to wait for the court to tell us if we can sell the house or how much or anything. Literally, that PR has full decision making process. So it's fantastic. I think I only had out of all the files we did last year, one, maybe two that were what we call restricted. Restricted is where now, yes, every move has to essentially be approved by the court. It's a little more clunky, but most of the files you get from these folks will not be that. It's just like a normal transaction other than the person involved is typically, dealing with some grief, but they're not usually very emotional about the money component of it because a lot of times either A, there's expenses going out for other things that have nothing to do with the house. And so they want to get this wrapped up so they can get all the expenses done. Or, we got to keep all the utilities on, pay the HOA. They don't want to come out of pocket any more than possible. So they want that house sold. Um, or the other part was that I was going to say, I lost it. So, um, communication rules. This is really critical. This is where some people misunderstand. They think they are being great with an attorney file by being over communicative. And this can be misunderstood because the billing for the clients is a reality. And like I said, sometimes you'll see attorneys work on a flat fee amount, but usually not. Usually there are billable hours and they bill for every, like literally with my dad's, my sister kept, I have this we didn't grow up together. She was in a different state. I was assigned this administratrix. She was basically just getting a check when the check came when I wrapped everything up. And she kept calling the attorney's office to get a status update because she didn't want to ask me. And every single time she would call and even leave a voicemail, they would do a 15-minute increment charge of $85 every single voicemail. After about the third one, I went ahead and sent a joint message to her and the attorney's office and said, should she continue to rack up the bill, that we're going to tack those on as additional cost of what will be deducted from the amount that she's going to receive. And the attorney agreed with me. So every single communication you do, you think you're helping the client and showing the attorney that you're really being proactive, but the reality is you could be costing your client hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars usually. So one of the great things with the attorneys is if you ask them at the beginning and say, how would you like this communication to work? Usually they're pretty straightforward, direct people. So we don't want to add to the bill. Over communication can hurt. It doesn't help. We set expectations right out the gate with the attorney's office when we're thanking them, for giving us the referral. We'll usually get a call from the client first, and then we call the attorney's office. We thank them and ask for the specific line of communication. And if there's any uh, interesting wrinkles in this file that we need to know about, the typical agreement ends up being let us know when you go under contract and let us know about 10 days before closing that you're going to close, because sometimes about 50% of the time the proceeds are directed to the attorney's office and they hold the money in what here it's called an IOLTA account, which is like a trust account. And when the rest of the probate is wrapped up, then the attorneys will just disperse all the money. And about 50% of the time it does go directly to the personal representative. But we don't let the PR tell us that. We want the attorneys to tell us that, because heaven help us if it was supposed to have gone to that attorney and it went to the client. And yes, if you think there's instances where that client goes and just blows $100,000 in a month by the time the attorney finds out and there's no getting the money back, we've got a big problem. So we get that communication direct, upfront and early. So usually it's very little involvement with that attorney. But this shows for them professional maturity, cost awareness, and respect for both the client and the attorney. And they'll be surprised that you even know to ask or to check in with them. Now, some of my friends that are highly involved with attorneys, they are very active with their local bar association. So each each state has a bar association, and they do networking and events, and some of them are completely amazing. I have a friend, Joe Gordon, in Utah, and he is so involved and so active, and he gets a ton of business just from rubbing shoulders at networking with only attorneys. Because guess what? Not any other realtors there, probably not any lenders there either. Um, and so here in Arizona, our bar association is not so awesome. They don't do a whole lot. I tried it for a year, but when I went out to dinner and caught up with a different one of my attorneys last month, we were chatting about it, and I said, I'm going to do this call. I'm going to share about it, and I think ours is kind of like lame. And she goes, yeah, it's pretty lame. She goes, but you know who you need to connect with? In the bar association, there is a separate arm just for paralegals. She goes, the paralegal arm here in our state is super active, and those people, I don't want to say gals, but those folks network like crazy. And if rub shoulders with them and they get to know you, that will open doors 100%. And there's opportunities to sponsor, from time to time. It doesn't sound like they get together a ton of times of the year, like 3 or 4 times. I was like, heck yeah. So that's on my to-do list this month, is to get signed back on with the Bar Association, specifically to just go to some of those paralegal events. Because remember, the paralegal is often the neck that turns the head. That is how you get your entry and your appointment initially. And then if the attorney gives the paralegal a thumbs up, that's okay to add you to their list of vendors, then usually it's the paralegals just making the decisions after that on the next file, the next file, the next file. They're just told, tell them they need to get their house sold, and the paralegal is the one giving the information. So, let's see. I'm just looking at my notes. What attorneys appreciate. Oh, yeah. So I talked about ethics. Here's an interesting thing as well. So you'll end up selling their houses because they get to know you, they like you, they trust you with their clients. So my first experience with this was one of my attorneys who was not an estate or probate attorney. He had referred us a couple one-off things he got some partitions for, and he ended up deciding he needed to sell his house. So I got to sell his house, was like 800,000, and then help him buy his $1.5 million house. Because guess what? Attorneys have income, and they have very nice income. And so, maybe you're selling it for us here in our market, average price point's probably like 500,000. So maybe you're selling, four or five, $600,000 houses for their clients that you're getting from them, but they're moving up many cases. So you're selling $1 million homes for them. We have one that will be, we're actually getting the listing on it this afternoon, and it's for her grandma. It's a totally different attorney. And she reached out to me and said, can you help me with my grandma's stuff? I know you've been helping with the clients. We just added her to our roster probably in the last 6 months. So we're at starting to hit that friend level. But they're sometimes they're hesitant to ask us things. And I said, yes, of course, absolutely. Her grandma has a manufactured home. That's why she was nervous. But I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you just have to take the $185,000 manufactured home, take one for the team, because last thing I want is her to have somebody else help with that. And then all of a sudden they get another one from her, and, the relationship changes. What attorneys care about? You cannot make them look bad. It's like their number one thing. Do not make them look bad. You must protect their reputation and help them feel that their clients are taken care of. You cannot discount their personal homes. So if if they were to say to you, or you were thinking, I normally charge my clients a banana, but you tell the attorney, but I'll charge you half that banana because you send me business, you just messed up. That's an ethics issue for them, and it looks like a kickback, and you can't do it. So if you're normally charging whatever you charge on average, now don't get me wrong, like I'm a veteran. So if I have a veteran seller, I give them a break because that's just what I do. It's just my DNA and what's built into me if they served like I served. But if normally across the board I charge bananas to everybody, I have to charge that attorney a banana. And if they ask you and say, oh, well, I was kind of hoping, Listen, Attorney Smith, I would love to, but if this were ever reviewed or looked at, because we do a lot of business together, it could ethically kind of look like a kickback, and we definitely want to avoid that, right? They're not going to ask you. You're not going to have that problem. Their favorite referrals, other attorneys, because of the cross reference. The other reason they like to hang out with you as you get to know them is if you're a high earner, they're a high earner. Attorneys often are in their own little world where they have people working, under them, but they can't really talk to them about money, finances. So they love those of us that are, when we're producing at a high level, when we're networking at a high level, when we're talking about growth and they want to know about real estate because they're always interested in like diversifying. Um, so those are some of the reasons that you kind of connect and click because if you think about it, we have a lot of similar experiences where they're dealing with clients, we're dealing with clients, and so it works out really well. Some of my closest friends are fantastic attorneys that I met through a milk run. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. This is a long game. Um, I'm just looking. So working with attorneys, it's not fast. It's a steady progress, but if you can get one and you see the value, boy, it's amazing. I'll tell you what, you can't wait to add the next one and then the next one. But most importantly, it's a huge paycheck of the heart because if I can't even tell you, we literally, when we started working with attorneys, we went from like, I don't know, we had like 30 something reviews to almost 100 five-star reviews within a year because of our first year working with, well, it's been about 2 years now, working with these families. Because when we ask them, can they do a review for us that would help make a difference? They're on it so fast, your head would spin. 100%, absolutely. I don't know how we could have gotten through this without you. And so it's super heartwarming. Um, and it also makes money at the same time. So I think it's a crazy win-win. Rebecca, do we have any other questions?
Yes, just got one. Do you do milk runs weekly or monthly?
Once a month.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Anybody currently doing anything with attorneys? No. You're missing out if you're not. Has anybody wanted to work with attorneys but thought it was, just seemed like too much work?
I feel like I'm a lender, but I feel like when I talk to my agents about it, it feels really intimidating. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's scary to go chase them. So I took lots of notes on just I'm a big fan of the warm touch of going to your sphere and being like, what attorneys do you have connections with and or have you used for your own personal scenarios and stuff. And I think people just need to realize like it's like dating somebody. Like you're like
Mm-hmm.
it's the reward is so worth the year of effort that you put into it. And lots of times it's not even that much, but it is a long game. But and you're exactly right. Like I was on Robin's team forever, and it's like if people were really nice to us, the assistants, and we're like, we love them, they're super great. Then Robin's like, all right, cool. And if you're nice to the lower level people, like the people in charge respect that so much. So it's definitely
Yeah.
worth it. And I think the tactics on just how to do it, and just your whole plan for all of it is so just so honed in and so good. I have a whole page of notes. So thank you for your time, Angela.
Yeah, you're welcome. The reality is most of the attorneys, they really want to do right by their clients, but they don't have the time or the wherewithal or the bandwidth to go out and they don't go out and find good vendor connections, if that makes sense, like we do. We're taught, go find a great inspector, go find a great title person, go find a great lender. The attorneys just, it doesn't even cross their mind. And so if they don't happen to have somebody kind of fall into their lap and intentionally build that relationship, they just tell their clients, well, just find somebody and make it happen. And then they're so frustrated when it goes really, really bad. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. It's just almost like a building block, and it doesn't have to be as scary as people. I think just the thought of attorney. feels scary, right? So I know our time's up, but if you guys have any agents that, are like, I need a little bit more encouragement or pick her brain or something, I'm always happy to jump on the call with somebody for, 15, 20 minutes, maybe get them started on like step one, not inundate, with this whole, because I know how overwhelming sometimes plans could be. And then happy to start them in the right direction or kick them off if you guys need that.
Well, thank you so much. You did
You're
a
welcome.